Good morning. Welcome to Custodians of Care, Helping the Helpers with the South Coast Interfaith Council. My name is Sara Deen and I serve as president of the SCIC. We represent 140 faith communities across the South Bay and Long Beach, and we are so grateful to be able to uplift our communities and support the efforts of many great nonprofits locally here. So this pandemic has really made us realize how vulnerable we really are. One day we're scheduling ourselves and seemingly the masters of our immediate destiny, and then all of a sudden 19 strikes and manifests as a reminder that we don't have all that much control and that we are quite vulnerable. As each of us experiences raw moments in different ways depending on our circumstances, our hearts seem to be noticing other people's vulnerability more than usual. We seem to be especially receptive to the pain and plight of other people. And through this program, Custodians of Care, the SCIC is seeking to highlight those who are especially vulnerable and overlooked in our communities. And these people are, of course, especially hit hard by the pandemic. And we'd also like to highlight the stories and efforts of those who seek to empower these vulnerable peoples. So it has turned into an opportunity to perhaps notice one another. So I'm really grateful to introduce today's nonprofit. But before that, as we do every week, I'd like to share a faith tradition. And today I'd like to thank Rini Ghosh from the Vedanta International Cultural Center for sharing from the Sanatan Dharma tradition, also known to many of us as the Hindu tradition, which dates back to at least a couple centuries before the birth of Christ in the Indian subcontinent. For followers of this faith community, their source of wisdom comes from epics. And usually in the stories of these epics, evil is usually destroyed by wars, destruction, blood, and death, sometimes even with the aid of divine weaponry. But in the epic we will share today from the Vishnu Purana, violence is not responded to by more violence. So this is a story of Bhasmasura, a violent demon, who started meditating with complete concentration on Shiva, another divine entity. Shiva was very pleased and offered him a boon. I had to ask what a boon is. A boon is a big favor that's granted to someone only after intense prayer and meditation. You have to earn it. So Bhasma has earned this boon and asks for the ability to turn anything he touches into ashes. So kind of a destructive request. That's why his name means ash demon. Now Shiva kept her word and granted Bhasma this ability. Big oops. Now the demon wanted to test this new ability on Shiva. So Shiva runs away to avoid being touched and turned into ash. Bhasmasura chases Shiva through all the quarters of the universe. It's an impossible situation that could not be resolved by anyone. No one dared to be near Bhasma. With Shiva being chased, what would happen to the universe? This is where Mohini enters the story. So seeing Mohini, Bhasma forgets all about his experiments on Shiva. It was absolutely love at first sight, and he proposes marriage then and there. And she's a clever one. Mohini answered that she was under a vow that she would marry only the man who could match her in a dance competition. As a Shiva devotee, the demon was a great dancer. The competition began, and the infatuated demon put up a good show. Mohini began to dance with various mudras, positions of the hands, which required her to frequently touch her head. The poor demon, mesmerized by her beauty and charm, didn't realize what he was doing, followed her lead, touched his head, and immediately reduced himself to an ash heap. So in this story, we see that a woman's intellect saves the universe from the violent demon. I love this story, which serves as an inspiration for the Hindu community. However, sometimes a woman needs tools and resources to empower herself, to engage with her own natural capabilities and remove herself from a harmful situation. Sometimes it isn't a woman who's in harm's way. It can be an elderly or a vulnerable child who's subjected to violence. And for many people in the South Bay, that resource or tool is the Star Family Justice Center in Hawthorne. And so I'm so pleased to introduce a longtime member, supporter, former board member of the South Coast Interfaith Council and executive director of New Star, Elena Meloni. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak, Elena. How are you?
I am doing well. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. And thank you for inviting me to this opportunity to talk about our organization.
Oh, we're so grateful to have you because I know you are still, as an essential service, you are still serving in the community. So this is a work day for you. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and New Star Family Justice Center? When was it established? How did you end up serving the community in this way?
So we have been established as a nonprofit for about 15 years now. When we first began, it was just a small group of us. I believe there were 5 of us who basically wanted to do only 2 things. We wanted to spread awareness of domestic violence and come up with a list of resources for those people who are in a situation as such and needed help. We realized that there are a few shelters, but there were no domestic violence agencies. Mm-hmm. And as you know, the shelters get full very quickly. If you have 8 beds, the 9th person is not able to access the services. So we thought this would be a good way to just help a little bit. And so by incorporating, we established a phone number so people could call in. But very shortly after a year, our phone, we began to receive calls just about every day. So we knew that this was an issue and a big problem, as it is in almost all of the communities. And that's when we got our first, we opened our first brick and mortar office, just a small, humble room. But for doing that, we were actually able to hire our first therapist who provided direct services with counseling. And our counseling was offered and still is offered in several languages. English, at that time it was English, Hindi, Urdu, and Arabic. And from there, we grew to where we are today.
So clearly there was a great, oh, there's some background noise.
Just a little.
Yeah. So clearly there was a great need in the community because it sounds like you were very busy right off the bat. So domestic violence is present everywhere, it seems, in all communities and at all walks of life.
Right, and take a look at the South Bay community. We're looking at, when I say community, I mean the 15 cities of the South Bay. 6 of these cities have their own police departments. The rest is, you'll find the sheriff operating in the rest of the areas. And there's no agency called, there's no domestic violence agency. There are a lot of little services here and there, but how to find them? We found, for example, we discovered that going to faith communities and educating people in the faith communities was very important, because one of the first places that a person would go to if they need help is where? A pastor, or they go to their imam, right? And well, if they don't have the tools, they're not going to have the tools, but they need to be able to know who do they refer them to. Once they offer the spiritual assistance, then what about all the rest? What about the fact that they may not be safe? What about the fact that they may become homeless? And so on and so forth. So that's where our work came into, in that, not just spreading the awareness, but also putting together a list of resources that they could offer when people came forward with that.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to understanding your services. Before we get to that, can you help us understand what domestic abuse, what domestic violence is? What is the scope? What can it look like? So
the simple definition of domestic violence is that it's a pattern of abusive behavior by one partner in an intimate relationship that is used to establish power and control over the other. So in this definition, there's 2 things that I want to highlight. The first is pattern of behavior. So this is not just a one-time thing. It's a pattern. And a pattern means that there is intentions to hurt the other person. Okay, and then the second is why, for what reason, and that is to exert control. There is this need to control. So that is the definition that we use. You said, what is the scope? The scope is to control the other person.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about when I think about domestic violence, I think of what they show on TV, which is like physically beating on someone, usually a man physically assaulting a woman. But I understand that's not the only form domestic violence takes. Your website mentions 5 types of abuse. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Right. So when you see physical abuse, right, you can be 100% sure that other types of abuses have already taken place. Because domestic violence is not a situation where you have a couple or partners, and all of a sudden one day one of them decides, oh, I'm just going to abuse you and I'm going to hit you. It doesn't work this way. It's a process. It begins with isolating the person from friends and family, and then beginning to belittle that person by calling them names, by telling them that they're really not that good at anything, things like that, taking away the self-confidence. And for sure, there's going to be financial abuse, because if somebody has money, they can also get away from that situation. Well, that ability is taken away. And then begins the shoving and the hair pulling and the punches and so on and so forth. So when you see scars on someone, you can be 100% sure that they have already been emotionally abused. Probably they have no money, no access to any funds, family funds. They have no control of their lives. And so that's what people don't realize. They think, oh, it was just a punch, or it was just, they're going to be sorry and then they're going to do it again, whereas the abuse is already established. The pattern of abuse has already been established.
Now, you mentioned financial abuse. What does that mean?
So financial abuse means anything from not allowing someone to go to work, so that person is dependent on what is given to him or her to spend. Financial abuse would be if somebody does go to work, they have to hand in the paycheck to the partner, and they have no control of the money that they earned. Financial abuse means that if the person goes shopping, the partner is always with them to make sure, no, you're not going to buy that. No, you're not going to buy that. And so they have no spending ability whatsoever. Everything is controlled. And so it's probably one of the worst abuses, because, as I said, if somebody has money and they realize that they're in a bad situation, they can always get away. They have some money that they can move away from, right? But without that, you're totally stranded.
Yeah. No, I don't know if there's a direct answer for this question, but now these are not always, what proportion of domestic violence victims are women versus children or other segments of the population?
So the statistics are 1 in 4 for women, sometimes 1 in 3, 1 in 4, and 1 in 7 for men. Men are also abused, and usually men don't complain, or you don't hear as much from them, because it is pride of being a man, and I'm not going to disclose that. And even for women, it's hard to come, to open up about that. But of course, for men, it's not so much the physical, but it's more of the emotional or other types of abuses. So those are the statistics, and they're true in every community. So no community can say that they're immune from it, and no community can say that they have more or less. Pretty much all the studies show that it is 1 in 4 women that will experience domestic violence at some point in their lives. So that it would include someone who could have experienced child abuse, someone who may have had a wonderful life and now they're being abused as an elder. It could be a person who maybe was raped at college. So all of these types of abuses go under the umbrella of domestic violence.
I'm still struck by your 1 in 4 number. That's a big number.
It's a big number, yeah.
A lot of women being impacted. Now, you said domestic violence can take many forms and it evolves over time. How does someone know, like you said, you're not talking about one incident of violence, it's a pattern of violence,
Correct.
Right? But if you've suffered through one incident, how do you know it's not going to happen again? Or are there steps you should take at that point? So,
and that's what's difficult, is because what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is is committed by someone whom you trust. It's a very difficult kind of abuse to get away from, because you just can't believe that someone that you love, actually just punched you. It's like, no, he must have made a mistake. For sure he had a bad day, right? And so you have a tendency of wanting to forgive and forget many times, right? But over time, if it continues to happen, you must realize that this is not a one time, and it's going to just get worse and worse and worse. So, yeah.
What causes an individual to abuse in this way? Why does it even happen?
So that's the $1,000,000 question, right? Like, what makes someone abuse, right? They would probably most likely have low self-esteem. They would probably have extreme jealousy. They would have difficult with managing their anger. You have situation where people may feel inferior and your partner is superior, so you feel like you need to dominate them. There are also other reasons. For example, in certain in certain communities, traditions are that the man is superior, so it's only natural that you would keep the woman at bay, so to speak. There are also undiagnosed personality disorder or psychological disorders. We see a lot of clients who say to us, when he takes his med, he's just fine. It's when he gets off the med that I have to worry about, and where I am and where the kids are. So we have that, right? And the other thing, and this is a very big one, it's learned behavior. If you come from a family where you witness domestic violence, even if you yourself were not abused, chances are that you may perpetrate domestic violence, or you may become a victim at some point in your life, because that behavior is standard and it's accepted. And that's one of the biggest goals that we have as domestic violence agencies, is to break that pattern, to make the person understand that what they saw and what they witnessed, that it's not normal. That is not normal. And so we have to unlearn that belief that it is okay to hit somebody else.
So that responsibility. Sorry, I don't know why the sound is doing that.
Sometimes, yeah.
But so you're saying it is possible to break the cycle? An abuser can learn to overcome this reflex or instinct, or learned behavior, I should say?
Well, an abuser can. A lot of times it's a little too late. So one of the ways that we try to break that cycle is to work with the youth. For example, one of our programs is teen dating violence prevention, right? So we do this program throughout the year where we get together with groups of teens, and we talk to them about, what is a healthy relationship, how to help a friend if you see that your friend is in a healthy relationship, who to trust, which adults can you trust, and how you can get help. And we do that with the schools. I've been doing it with many of the schools around the Hawthorne area. The idea is to prevent. That is a prevention piece. So if we can prevent that, if we can make young people understand, they may be in a home where there is domestic violence. So we can open up that window for them, that what they're witnessing at home, it's not right, it's not correct. And so, with the hope that, of course, they learn and they will not perpetrate that abuse themselves once they become adults.
That's a great program. I love that, to prevent and to teach children from a young age what a healthy relationship looks like and what are healthy tools to resolve differences. That's fantastic. Correct. Now, why doesn't the abuser, the person being abused, you mentioned that people hesitate seeking help. Why do women who are in the situation not seek help or remove themselves quickly from the situation?
Well, think about it. First of all, you love the person. Most likely have some children with this person. The person is probably mean to you, but not necessarily to the children. You want to respect the relationship between the children and their mom or their dad. And it's not easy. A lot of women are not believed, they're not believed that they're being abused unless we see those bruises. We go back to the bruises, right? Which is now you're deep into, an abusive relationship once you see those bruises. You see, people just don't believe you. What do you mean you don't get enough money? Oh, maybe you're just spoiled, things like that, right? So you just are not believed. And then once you do decide, the whole process is very complicated. How are you going to break away? What is the method of breaking away? If he's violent, what do you need to do? Do you need to get a restraining order? Well, now you're going to interact with the police department, right? And if there are children, now the Department of Children and Family Services may be into your life. And you may not be able to stay at home anymore. Now you may have to go to a shelter. It is not fun to go to a shelter because you're dislocating yourself from the very community that you have to come back to again for help to rebuild your life. So it's just a very complicated matter. This is why a lot of times, especially women, they dismiss, they forgive, they feel maybe tomorrow will be better, or maybe I did something, or they blame themselves, for example, because the process is very difficult. And and they're financially dependent on them. They know that if they disconnect from, say, the father who is financially supporting the family, the kids are not going to have all the things that are now enjoying, with the two parents together. So you think about all of these things, and it's not easy to just walk out the door.
So I imagine a lot of women may feel like, for the benefit of my children, so that they can continue going to the schools they go to, so that they can continue to live the quality of life they're used to, so that they can continue to have a loving father, I can take it. I'm going to make that, women, as a woman, I was always taught, it's kind of taught to us from a young age that sacrificial, to be a living human sacrifice, right? A mother sacrifices, a daughter sacrifices. Mm-hmm. So, so I can imagine a lot of women feel like they're willing to make the sacrifice for the benefit of their children. Is there an impact on a child that's witnessed? Maybe the child isn't being harmed, but the child is in a household where the mother is being abused. Is there an impact on that child? What does that impact look like?
Yes, there's a huge impact. The studies have shown over and over again that children who grow up in an abusive environment, even though they themselves are not being abused, they're just witnessing the abuse, they very well may become abuser themselves, because now they feel, oh, well, my dad used to hit my mom, so I can hit my girlfriend. So that's fine. Or they may become victims. As a matter of fact, if you have an incident, for example, where 911 is called and the police come to the home to take a report, if they see children present, by law, they now have to call the Department of Children and Family Services. And they have to wait there until the social worker comes. And the social worker will determine the fate of their family. Just to give you an example, most of the time what happens is the social worker will say to the mom, I'm assuming the mom is usually most of the time the non-offending offensive partner, right? Non-offending partner. Look, you have a choice. Either you ask him to leave, and if you can't do that because it's not your house, it's his house, for example, then you take the kids and leave. And if you cannot do that, then you stay with him and we will take the children in foster care. Wow. Half of the children in foster care are there, not because they themselves are abused, but because they witness abuse. And because the point is that you want to disconnect children from this relationship, because if they continue to witness this and to live in an environment like this, they will for sure become abusers or victims at some point. So how do we eliminate domestic violence? How do we eliminate domestic violence, right?
Well,
so that's the big question.
What you just shared highlights how hard it is for women to leave.
Yes.
I'm just, I have one of these conversations every week, but this one just feels very visceral. Because I'm a mother, so you can always really you understand how a woman might feel in that circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We've touched upon different kinds of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
What about if you're in a situation and maybe there's financial abuse or verbal abuse, is it necessary that it'll become domestic violence? Because I've heard a lot of women say, I've heard this occasionally in closed circles, where a woman will say, but he doesn't hit me, right? It's just the verbal, it's the emotional or the financial abuse, or the two of those things coupled, but without the physical abuse. Does that type of abuse warrant leaving the home and removing the children?
Well, again, it all depends. A lot of women who are experiencing verbal abuse or emotional abuse, they never report anyways. So they never report. There could be a situation where maybe if there is a major altercation and there's a lot of yelling and the police may be called. But again, even the police, if they're not seeing any bruises, because, that's also how they understand domestic violence, right? They may just make a simple report and then the whole incident is over. So this is why there's a lot more domestic violence than we think, right? We are willing to live in a situation where, okay, so he calls me names and I don't have any control over the money, and but the rest of it is okay. He doesn't hit me. The person has to make their own decision about that, right? Only the victim can decide at which point they feel, okay, this is truly, like a situation where we can't live under this situation. We just can't do it.
Right.
Whether it's physical abuse or not, the rest is abuse as well.
The really tricky one seems to be the psychological abuse, where that one sounded like it's where the partner almost plays mind games to reduce the other person's sense of self-worth and kind of how their perception of the situation, right? I think that one seemed the most trickiest.
Very tricky. Let me tell you another abuse that probably people are not even aware of, and but at our center, it's one of the very first questions that we ask, and that abuse is strangulation. So most people don't even know the word strangulation, right? What they know is choking. When we do an intake, one of the questions that we ask is, have you ever been choked? Actually, choked is incorrect, because choking is when you're eating or drinking something and you're just choking, right? But strangulation is when someone intentionally puts their hands around your neck so as to stop the air from flowing to the brain. And so this is used by, we're looking at maybe 40% of our clients are experiencing strangulation. This is the ultimate abuse, because when someone does this, they are saying to you, your life is in my hands. I can let go or not. And what strangulation does is it causes brain injury. So what we notice, or what has been noticed, is that women who are strangled, it's usually the woman who gets strangled, by the way, later on at some point they will suffer strokes, unexplained strokes. And when you do the MRIs, you'll see brain damage, and they don't know where they got them from. They cannot understand where they got them from. Well, if the doctors are trained properly and they ask the proper question, you find out that a lot of the times it was because at some point they were strangled, repeatedly, or even one strangulation sometimes is enough to cause a lot of brain injury. This is very important to us because one of the things that we do is Family Justice Center. So we are a domestic violence agency, but we are also a family justice center. And one of the things that we do is that we train first responders, such as police officers, medical staff, specifically on strangulation, because there are no bruises. You can't see anything. Only the victim knows that she has been strangled, and the perpetrator knows that he did that act. So it's very important that, for example, a police officer, when they're taking their first report, asks, ma'am, have you been strangled? Have you been choked? Because if the answer is yes, he needs to note that in the report. Because now there are two crimes committed. Strangulation domestic violence is a crime. strangulation is a crime. And if the victim decides to go ahead into the court system and use the court system, to prosecute the person, right? Those will be two crimes, but it needs to be noted in the report. And a lot of officers, are not trained. Obviously, there isn't enough money to train. As we learn more about, what these abuses are, people need to be trained as well. But of course, we all know about budgets and things like that. So one of the things that we do yearly is we do these workshops specifically for law enforcement, first responders, medical staff. And again, when a nurse, now we have hospitals that have nurses that specialize in identifying domestic violence. And now they are beginning to ask the question, have you been choked? Because then if you want to and that is evidence in court that this crime actually happened.
Wow, I did not know that, the connection between a history of strangulation and strokes. Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I didn't even know that you guys work with training the police department. That's fantastic.
Yes.
So how can a vulnerable person end the abuse or escape the abuse? And I guess you can tie into that, how does your organization support individuals who are suffering from domestic violence?
Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, the victim has to make up their mind that they want to leave that relationship. Mm-hmm. It's mostly their call. Of course, as I said before, if there's an altercation and police are called, or if a child goes to school and says, my dad hit me, my mom hit me, there may be an investigation about that. So that's another way that a case can open up. But so let's assume that the victim calls. And what I say is, please call 911. The 911 staff is very well trained on resources for domestic violence. And they can send that person, they can give that person phone numbers, whether it's on a national level phone numbers like the National Domestic Violence Awareness Organization, or if you Google, for example, you will find us. We come up very quickly, Domestic Violence South Bay, you'll see our name. Shelters names also come up. And so it's making that initial call. So when we get the initial call, we ask a few questions to verify for ourselves that the person is in a domestic violence situation. And then we ask them to come to our center. The first thing that we do is a safety plan. We want to make sure that they understand if they are safe, whether they're going to go back home or maybe enter a shelter, but that safety plan has to be done right in the beginning. We do an intake with the assessment to see where they're at, what kind of abuse has she's been suffering, are there children involved, and so on. And then there's the question, do you need a protection? Do you need a restraining order? We help with that. We help with the temporary restraining order. It's a nice thick packet that needs to be filled out. Most people are not familiar with that. Most people have never been to court before, so it's very intimidating. So we help them with that, filling out that paperwork. We help them write out the statement of what happened, and we provide court support. So on the date that they have to appear in court, we provide an advocate. Now, an advocate is not an attorney, but they can sit next to the person, and it's just encouraging to know that there's somebody there for you. And then after that, we'll see what else is needed. Can you stay in the apartment that you're in or the house you're in? If not, do you need to move somewhere? What kind of funding do you need? Do you need to apply for benefits? So we take them to the office to apply for benefits. We provide them, with all the as much as we can, because of course we're just a small agency still, right? But if they need a lift ride, to go to court or to see the attorney, you just try to find out what that person needs and how we can assist them. When people come to our center, the average is a minimum of 3 months. Most of the time, it's 6 months and more. So a person tends to stay with us because of the multiple services that they need to receive. We right away offer therapy as a family, therapy for children, individual therapy, group therapy. we offer these in English and in Spanish because, as you know, 40% of the population here in the South Bay, or at least where we are, is Spanish speaking. So we want to make sure that, everybody's included, and we'll go from there.
And you said the services are free to the client.
We never charge, never, because we understand that when clients come in, they don't have any money. They just don't have any money.
So how do you guys offer these services? Where does the funds come from?
Well, the funds come from grants, friends, family, appeals, and it's very difficult to raise funds for domestic violence because it is a crime that is still hidden. It's not easy to talk about domestic violence. Just imagine homeless, for example, or the mom and her 3 children, they're homeless. Can you please, donate some money so they can have a hotel night, right? But if you say, well, they are victims of domestic violence, suddenly the picture changes. It's like, what do you mean? So it's still very difficult to raise funds. But we try our best.
It seems to always go back to that idea of not believing women, right? Like I was just listening to you as you said that okay, there's a mom and kids and they're homeless. That hotel room versus saying she's a victim of domestic violence. I think the listener is thinking, well, she must have had something to do with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. She must have caused it. That's why she's homeless. Yeah. And even when we check in a hotel, you can't. You don't tell the person why or for example, let's say I'm helping someone get into a hotel, right? So the hotel may be under that name, under the person's name, but we're paying for it, right? So we're not, why is she here? We can't say because we're saving her from a domestic violence situation, right? We can't say that. Yeah. So
I hope we can break this pattern of not believing women and just in general blaming victim blaming. Yeah, I hope we can break that. Now I just want to clarify, you said if someone's in an immediately dangerous situation, they should call 911 as opposed to calling your center.
Yes, they should definitely call 911 because as I said, the police can be dispatched right away. If they call us, there isn't much we can do right then and there. If the altercation is going on, at that point, we cannot intervene in that, right? We're an agency, but the police can come. They can do a report. Even the police themselves have the power to offer a 7-day emergency restraining order. This is not the temporary restraining order. This is a 7-day emergency restraining order. The police have the power to ask the perpetrator to leave and give that 7-day restraining order. So there's a little reprieve on the victim to think about, okay, what can I do? What should I do next, right? So that's why the 911 call is very important.
I'm sure that's helpful, and I'm sure those 7 days go by very fast.
Very fast, yes.
Yeah. So as the COVID-19 pandemic has been unfolding, I've seen a lot of posts and messaging that there might be vulnerable individuals that are being trapped in with their abuser and even more susceptible to experiencing domestic violence. Is that true? How are these groups of people being impacted by the pandemic?
Well, this is like the worst situation, right? For them, right? Absolutely the worst situation. So what we are reporting, domestic violence agency, what we're reporting an uptick in cases, right? But not as much as you would think, because what we believe is going to happen is that as soon as the stay-home orders begin to be lessened, that's where we are going to get those calls. Because right now they're trapped and they're doing the best that they can. But what we want them to know is that we are still here. We are open. Even though a lot of our services are done online right now, they can get almost anything they want. The police will still come to the home. They can still make that 911 call if they're in danger. But that's the reality. This is absolutely the worst time for victims of domestic violence to go home and know that you can even, you can even make a phone call maybe. you can't go out anymore, to hide somewhere, to call for help. Now, so it's a very tough situation for them.
What would you say to the watching right now that can't make that call? Is there something you would tell her in this moment?
Well, that's, again, it's
difficult.
It's very difficult. Exactly. It's very difficult. Try to make that call. Let's put it that way. Try to make that call, because that's the only way we would know.
Yeah. How has the work of your organization been impacted by the pandemic? Have you had to, and you kind of touched upon it already, but how have you had to alter the way you offer support and services to your clients?
Yes, well, of course, it came on us all of a sudden, almost, even though we knew there was a virus going around. None of us knew the impact of it, right? We're not considered totally essential services, so we were asked not to keep our doors open. So, I'm very blessed. I have a good staff that immediately we put a plan in place as to how we can migrate all of our work online. And so we had to sign up with all types of programs, and everything has to be HIPAA compliant. I mean, everything we're doing at the office with all the compliances have to be the same online. So it's not just, we cannot do just anything, right? But we did. All the forms were translated. We now have like DocuSigns and things like that, because again, before we can engage in any services, we have to have forms that are signed by the client. And so we have some vibrant programs going on right now, by the way. We have individual therapy. We're getting calls on those every day. We realize that not all agencies are offering that. So social workers, like some of the social workers, are returning the children to the parents. Usually it's the mom, and on condition that you take the 10-week domestic violence education class. Well, no one is offering that. We are offering that. So we're seeing, a lot of people calling us, oh, do you offer the 10 weeks? I have to have a certificate. And we absolutely offer that. And now we're doing it online. We're doing a teen dating violence prevention program online this year. So another thing we've done is we're trying to keep in touch with clients and people that we know that may be victims. And we're asking them to stay connected with us. So what we did is we created this little program called Quilt of Hope. And what we do is we send an invitation and to participate, to have our client participate. And the invitation has two parts. One is that they can color a mandala of their choice. In the invitation, they can click which design they want, and they can color it and screenshot it and send it back to us. And also they can talk a little bit, or talk a little bit about how they're feeling right now. What is their hope, right? And things like that. And then we capture that, and then we are building an online quilt with all of these wonderful pictures that they're sending us. And we hope that we can attach these messages to each picture, and then we would like to share that with the community. So that's a way of, keeping all of us together. You asked before, what can we do for COVID-19 victims? So this is a project we're doing for them.
So it's like an interactive community quilt online. That's beautiful. That's lovely. If there's someone who's watching right now who doesn't feel safe, and after listening to you talk about domestic violence, I'm thinking you might not always identify yourself as not safe. I think it's a high bar before a woman says, I'm not safe anymore. But there might be a moment before where maybe you feel like you have no control over your own life. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
If there's someone watching that feels in that situation, and how can they safely reach out for help? What's the best way to get help right now? If they're not in immediate danger.
If they're not in immediate danger, they can call us, right? And they can enlist in some of our services. For example, our 10-week DV education class is great, because if you take those classes, you can then learn what is domestic violence, and you can see for yourself, am I in this type of relationship? Do I see a way for this person to actually change? Or am I learning that they will never change that behavior, and it's up to me now to take the next step? So does that answer the question?
Yes, yes. What about if you know someone or you feel like you have a friend that might be in this kind of situation, might be subjected to some form of domestic violence? We live in a community society now where we kind of maintain, our walls are very high and our fences are tall and the distances are great.
Yes.
So we don't know when it's appropriate to ask a question or to offer support. What's an appropriate response, or what can a friend do or a family member who suspects their loved one might be a victim?
Right. Well, first of all, you have to believe them. Talk to them and believe them, because this is the problem, and this is why victims don't talk, because nobody's going to believe me. So believe them, be on their side, right? And let them know that there is help. There's only so much a friend can do. So encourage them to reach out for help. Look in the community and see what numbers you can put together that you can offer to a friend or to someone you suspect, right? There are brochures everywhere. I mean, we have little cards, for example, like this, that people can get from us. It's just a little tiny card, but look, it opens up.
Can you fire?
Oh, it's a little tiny card. Can you see that?
Yes.
And it opens up, and it gives you like the information you need in a snapshot. Mm-hmm. And in the back. So this is what we give to the police department and the sheriff. They have these cards, our cards. So when they answer a call, they give them one of these. And so simple things like this. And again, it's up to the person to make that call. We can't force them to do anything, and don't force anybody to do anything. They have to do it when they are right, because as I said before, it's a complete change in someone's life when they make that decision. So it has to be their decision.
So what if you're very concerned for a friend or a family member, and you've asked them, you've even seen a bruise, you might have heard an altercation, or maybe you've just, you just suspect, have a strong suspicion, and you ask them, are you okay? Or, do you need help? But they say, no, I'm fine. Like, usually, like you mentioned, there might be shame, there might be love and affection. They want to protect the abuser. Mm-hmm. Is it appropriate to ask again later, or what should you do in that situation?
It's appropriate to continue being their friend. Let them know you can trust me. I'm not going to, I'm going to believe you, what you are telling me, and I'm going to continue to ask you to please reach out for help. This is what you can do. You can call this agency, or you can call this, or please remember, if he does this to you again, call 911. Encourage them to do these things. That's all we can do. If we're witnessing an altercation, we should be calling 911 as well, right? You're looking at the abuse, you're seeing the abuse. But if you're just hearing about it, you can't really call 911 on behalf of somebody else. So.
Yeah. As people of faith, we of course are reminded to think of the abuser, that's a person too, right?
Right.
So what if there's someone who themselves is the perpetrator, or someone who is has these learned behaviors of violence? What can they do? Is there something? Do you ever have an abuser call in and ask for help? Does that happen?
So we are a victim center. So there are services for the abuser as well. There's counseling. There are free services for them as well. There are agencies that specialize working with abusers as well. And usually when you have a case that goes to court, for example, the judge will most likely ask the abuser to take counseling classes, or to take there's specialized 52 weeks of anger management, for example, depending on what the abuse was, right? Mm-hmm. So there is help for them as well, yes. But for us, we are a victim center, so we only see the victim.
I see. I'm just so grateful that you have been doing this work, and that you're continuing to do this work despite the great difficulty of the pandemic. I didn't realize that you were identified as a non-essential service. Mm-hmm. So, and despite that, you guys have continued to, while respecting the stay-at-home orders, still being there for your clients, being there for the community. So really thank you for that. What can somebody like me or any community member do who's watching? What can we do to support your efforts to help people who are being subjected to domestic violence at this time? What can we do to help?
So when people say, what can we do to help? My first thought, of course, is always the victim, what are clients, right? They are the ones in the greatest need. The requests that come on my desk almost all the time and almost every day is what? It's rent support, it's food, it's clothes and shoes for the kids. It's I don't have money, I don't have a car, right? Or I need to go to the court hearing because I have to go to the court hearing. I don't have transportation. I have a car, but I don't work or or whatever, and I don't have gas money. So these are the kind of support that our clients need, and this is what I usually advocate all the time. If you could please perhaps sponsor a family. Maybe sponsor a family for the holidays. That will be one way, but sponsoring a family throughout the year it's very important because it's throughout the year that they have these needs. Mm-hmm. So adopt a family, I like to call it adopt a family program, where somebody could say, you know what, maybe I want to work with the children in this family, or maybe I want to work, maybe I want to help the woman take a community class so that when she has that certificate, now she can get a job. So this kind of support is what I look for, for our clients.
Okay, so Dr. in an earlier you mentioned that a few friends could even get together and sponsor or adopt a family together, or you could adopt, like you said, you could just take care of the children's needs for 6 months or something like that. So there's is there a certain amount of money one would have to be able to commit every month, or are there different options?
Well, if somebody calls and say, hey, I want to support a family, what can I do, right? So then we present a family to them. Oh. And then we say, okay, so here's a family. For example, I'll give you a real scenario. I have a mom and 3 kids, okay? 2 children are teenagers. One of the teenage is a boy, and every 3 months, literally, he needs new shoes. It's like, she's trying to finish this last piece for this diploma, so then she can have the kind of job that she can pay rent and everything with it. And, it's just incredible, she does not have enough money for rent. The clothes they're growing, like every other month, it's 2 inches higher. Now the jeans are now look more like mid, they don't even look like jeans anymore. So we present a family, we say, okay, what part can you support? Can you maybe do $100 a month towards rent support? Or can you maybe take care of the clothes for one of the child, right? Or maybe can you help, with food, every other month, something like that. And then you choose the level of support that you can, that you're comfortable with.
And I guess what you're really highlighting is that a lot of these needs are not just one time. Like we might contribute a certain amount and feel that satisfaction that, oh, I helped this family purchase shoes, when, like you've pointed out, kids grow so fast that in 3 months, they're back in that same place where they need shoes again. So
yes. Yeah.
That makes sense. So it's talking about what you're talking about is ongoing being aware of the need. It's not.
Yes.
So, okay. And is there another way? So that's one thing, they can adopt a family.
You can always give us, offer gift cards. For grocery store, Target, gift cards are very much needed because you need your cleaning supplies, you need your toilet paper, you need, and where is the money for all that, right? So, any help like that, it's very much appreciated.
Essentially, all of the food, hygiene, things that we each have been worried about for our own selves, these families, of course,
need as well. Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah.
So gift cards for, like you said, I think Target, Visa cards. Is there
Walmart? Walmart is a good place to go. It's not too expensive, for $50 or $100. You can get quite a few things that you need. Gas cards, I'm always asked, I don't have enough gas, you know, and sometimes they need a little cash to pay for the insurance. You can't drive without insurance. So, you know, it's things that we take for granted. We don't even think about. But if you're trying to help a family rebuild their lives, these are the things that they need along the way until they're stable with employment. And then, you know, then they're off and don't need the help anymore.
Yeah, we were talking about in earlier conversation, even once you've secured employment, it takes a couple months for you to get ahead of the bills.
Yes.
So, I really appreciate that you guys stay with the family in that relationship. You honor that relationship till that person is secure. So that's great. So we will definitely share those 2 asks with our viewers and community this week. For Adopt a Family, I'm guessing that we can visit your website and pursue that. Is there a donation link available through which we can?
Yes, there's a donation on just about all the pages. So our website is NSFJC, that's New Star, NSFJC.org.
Okay, so the acronym for your organization.
Yes, New Star Family Justice Center.
And for the gift cards, people, you know, a lot of us are staying within our homes. Can we mail them to you?
Absolutely. Our address is 12929 Hawthorne Boulevard in the city of Hawthorne, 90250.
Fantastic. Elena, is there anything else you would like the community to know about you, your work, or the people you serve?
So this COVID-19 has put a dent on some of the program that I was planning to have with the community, but I'm hoping that we can pick up soon. And one of the things that I wanted to establish was a day where we can have people visit our center, because we are a family justice center, which is different, as I mentioned before, from a regular domestic violence agency. What that means is that we have partner agency on site to duplicate to give even more services to that client at no cost when they come in. And also our center has a very unique structure. Family Justice Center, ours obviously, when the client first comes in, they are escorted to a family room, which is a really nice, very comfortable place. The whole idea is to put the client and her children in a comfort zone. We have a beautiful children's playroom, very spacious. We have volunteers that can watch the children and play games with them while mom is receiving services. We have individual counseling rooms, which are just beautiful and peaceful and very, very conducive to an environment where you can open up and, you know, talk to your therapists. We have an education room. I believe we can have up to 30 people there. So all of our classes, educational classes can be done over there. So I wanted to give these tours to the community so they can see for themselves what it is that we do for a family when they come. It's not just a one-time come in, we help apply for benefits and then we never see them again. No, our families stay with us a year, sometimes even 2 years, because that's how long the process is taken through the court system. And so everything that we do is geared towards making that person feel comfortable. And I want to show the community, you know, how much care that we do give, you know, to the families and their children. So hopefully, you know, we can do this in the near future.
Sounds awesome. It seems like you serve not just as, like you said, as a domestic violence center, but as a friend that's reliable, trustworthy, and knowledgeable.
Yes.
For those to accompany those that are on this very difficult path.
Yes, we walk with them on their path to self-sufficiency. So
before I close, I'd like to finish with, could you maybe share with us, once you've accompanied a family, what's on the other side for them? Does it get better? Does life go on? Are they able to find peace and happiness? Can you share that with us?
One of the reasons why I want to do the tours is because I want to share with you success stories after success stories after success stories of people who have overcome domestic violence. Again, for us, it's mostly women and children, and where they were and where they are today. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing the resiliency we see. Basically, they just need help and guidance along the way. But I can just open our drawer, our file, and I can pull out one file after another. This is closed. Why? Success, finished. This is closed. This is closed because they now obtain their goal, and their goal is usually self-sufficiency. Now the children are going to a good school. There is money. There's money that if somebody, there's a situation where kids are begging for a pizza right now. They don't even have a pizza. Sometimes I have a mom crying because I don't even have money for a pizza for my children. They haven't had pizza for 3 months. So all of that will be, eliminated, once, they reach their goal. So that's,
I like that.
A lot of success stories. And that's what keeps me wanting to do this work, because it really tears, at your mental health, and it tears at your heart to see, people coming in, and the stories are just, some stories are just horrible. You cannot believe that a human being could perpetrate that kind of harm on another human being who trusted you so much, who's loved you, who's sharing your life. And, we don't even mention some of the abuse that we see, because they're just horrific. And so what keeps us doing this work is to see the success of the children, to see how well the children are now doing in school. We have children that come, they can even speak. They're like 4 years old and they can't talk. Obviously, that's the impact. You asked me earlier, what is the impact of domestic violence on children? We have children who can't talk. And they're 4 years old, and now they can't even go to school, or, and then you see them, now they're in their 5th grade, and they call up sometimes and say, oh, I got all A's, and I'm student of the year. Isn't that amazing?
They must feel
so that's what makes us open that door every day.
Wow. So I think what I'm hearing you say is every woman has the innate ability to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
You guys just help her realize that by offering tools.
Correct.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Elena. I know you're very busy. I was telling Milia, I was like, she is so busy with her center. I'm sure the only reason she's offering us the time is because I know you really love the South Coast Interfaith Council.
Yes.
And will forever be a part of our family. And so we're grateful for your friendship and your support. Milia did ask me to, and we'll talk after this about how we can be a better support, how the Interfaith Council can better support your work moving forward. I encourage everyone watching to connect with the South Bay's resource for those impacted by domestic violence by visiting their website at nsfjc.org. And we will put that on our page after this video. Thank you again, Elena. Please continue to follow us at the South Coast Interfaith Council as we continue to offer opportunities for connection and community through the pandemic. Next week, we will feature another nonprofit for our Custodians of Care series. Again, I'd like to thank Elena Meloni of the New Star Family Justice Center, Rini Ghosh of the Vedanta International Cultural Center, Milia Islam Majid, and Cheryl Bentz, our lovely staff of the SCIC, my fellow board members of the council, and our awesome video editor, Haris Seif. Until next week, let's stay safe, healthy, and continue helping one another.
Thank you again, everyone. And I love the South Coast Interfaith Council, and I am forever part of your family, and I hope to see all of you soon.
Thank you, Elena.
Hi. If you are in immediate danger or harm, please call 911 immediately. They are available throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. If you are a victim of domestic violence and you live in the South Bay, Los Angeles area, please call New Star Family Justice Center at 323-345-2686. 323-345-2686, or email office@nsfjc.org. If you are a victim of domestic violence and live beyond the South Bay, Los Angeles area, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. If you are unsure that you need help or that you're being subjected to domestic violence and abuse, please call New Star Family Justice Center to connect with someone who cares about you, and consider enrolling in the 10-week domestic violence prevention course. The South Coast Interfaith Council invites you to help the helpers by adopting a family. Consider sponsoring a family who is recovering from or removing themselves from a harmful and dangerous home situation. Please call 323-345-2686 to learn how you can help a family through the COVID-19 pandemic. You can also make a donation at nsfjc.org/get-involved/. We also invite you to consider donating a gift card, thus enabling a family who is struggling to put their life back together so that they can purchase groceries, hygiene items, and other essentials. We suggest increments of $25, $50, or $100 in gift cards from retailers such as Target, Walmart, or Visa. Gift cards may be mailed to New Star Family Justice Center at 12929 Hawthorne Boulevard in the city of Hawthorne, California, 90250. Again, gift cards may be mailed to 12929 Hawthorne Boulevard in the city of Hawthorne, California, 90250. We also invite you to connect with the New Star Family Justice Center by visiting their website at nsfjc.org. And we'd also love you to connect with us, the South Coast Interfaith Council, by following our Facebook page and by subscribing to our YouTube channel to follow our projects. Thank you.